Ladies and gentlemen, today on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast, my guest is Chad Peterson, CEO of Peterson Acquisitions. Chad Peterson is an expert business broker and founder of Peterson Acquisitions, an award-winning M&A firm. Chad's firm handles transactions in $1 million to $25 million range, with some deals exceeding $25 million. He works with companies all over the United States and has completed international deals as well. Peterson Acquisition was recently named by one publication as the #1 ranked business broker in the United States. What sets Chad apart from all the business brokers is his aggressive style, work ethic, and tenacity that is rooted in his humble beginnings. Chad is a self-made entrepreneur that has been in the trenches. Stay tuned for Chad Peterson of Peterson Acquisitions on the Billionaire Lifestyle.
Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Today is the day that God gave you, so rejoice in it and be glad. You know, we are going through some very dynamic times where things change, and that's what life is about. You are in constant flux and you're in constant change because you are a billionaire. You started off as sales and you progressed to be a human being. So now that I've got that out the way, today I got some good stuff for you. So, you know, some of us only know that there's only one way to make money. They think that you go out and you earn it. Sometimes you can acquire the capital you need to acquire the capital you need, which means you can buy a company or you can sell a company. And I got just the guy here, as you heard in the intro. What's up, Chad?
Hey, thanks for having me. I am just the guy, and not because I say so, but, you know, other people say so too, you know? I mean, I get a lot of people that say, man, you're the guy I needed to talk to, and I think I can help your audience out today. And you're so right. You know, there's one way to do it, which is go out there and just make every mistake in the book and not get anywhere, or you can contact somebody like me who can help you make the right steps to make your success become more efficient.
So, you know, you deal with companies that are starting out at $1 million or evaluated at $1 million and going up to $25 million or more, which actually isn't that much, unless you are familiar with it. But let's give people the education today. So, because a lot of people don't even know that buying and selling companies is a thing. Well, I do because I've had my own business and I've had friends who've had business and they built them to sell. So how did you get into understanding and moving about the brokerage business?
Well, that's a great question. I will tell you this, though, before I answer that question. You know, let's just say some of your audience, let's say that they're trying to become, you know, they're already a billionaire because, like you said, they've beat the odds and they've become a human, and they're out there working it. And, you know, you got to have that billionaire mindset. You got to be so grateful that God gave you this day. And I dig your energy. I dig your vibe and what you're putting out there. It's great. But let's just say that one of your listeners is only making $100,000 a year in his business. That business could be worth $250,000. Did you know that if I were to sell somebody's business that's only making $100,000 a year, that $250,000 could now be the dry powder to buy a $2 million business? And do you know that $2 million business would be paying your $100,000 earner? It would be paying them $700,000 a year.
You know, that's one of the things that I don't think a lot of people understand is evaluation and worth.
Yeah, they don't. And they don't understand that it only takes 10% to buy a business. So if you want to buy a $2 million business, it's going to cost you $200,000 plus a little change, and usually it's added into the loan. But you can come to a guy like me with only $200,000. I can get you into a $2 million business, and that business will be paying you $650,000 to $700,000 a year. Remember, you only started off making $100,000 a year. Now I've sold you for $250,000. Now I say that because there's a lot of people out there that are doing it the wrong way. They don't understand that there's quantum leaps that you could make. They don't understand that you don't have to work your knuckles to the bone for the next 20 years to get to a certain place, to then get to a certain place. And if they come to me, I can leapfrog them into success. Let's say you're making $400,000 a year. Well, I can sell your business for say $1.3 million. What do you think? What do you think you can afford if you have $1 million to play with? You can buy a $10 million business that's paying you $3.5 million a year.
All right, I want to stop you for a minute because nobody knows you. I know the people know you who you've done business with, but the audience doesn't know you. So let's go back.
Okay.
Let's go back to find out how Chad got made. What brought you to now?
Yeah, I was a little kid, and I just knew that if it was meant to be, it was up to me. And I don't know why I had that in me. Maybe I was born with the entrepreneurial spirit. I don't know. But what I do know is that my mom didn't really recognize it in me. She didn't know what to do with it. She's never been told what to do with it. She's never been presented with this issue. I was literally 6, 7 years old and buying things at garage sales and then trying to resell them. And I was knocking on doors and asking if people I could walk their dogs for $5. I was picking, weeds out of flower beds. I'd do anything for a couple bucks. And it was that just kept going. And by the time I was in high school, I had a full-fledged business. I was making more than my teachers.
That's called hustle.
No kidding. And in high school, I literally got on the work program where I had to go to school for 3 hours a day, and then left, and I went and ran my own business. And I've been that way. I've been wired that way my whole life. And I was literally making $60,000 a year as a teenage kid. And I was, and so now I already had a really healthy dose of why the hell am I in school? I already had that because I'm like, I know how to make money. So now I got this guy, he's wearing a sport, this teacher, he's wearing a sports coat and he's got the patches on his elbows and he's, at least 100 pounds overweight. And, he's trying to comb over his hair, to fill up his bald spot. And he's trying to teach me about life. And I just couldn't stand it. So I was a problem child. I didn't want to listen to anybody. They sent me down to the principal's office. They said, hey, this kid isn't listening to me. Well, they didn't know they were sending me down to the principal's office, who I wrestled with his son all his life. I was a wrestler, and I wrestled with the principal's son my whole life. And Carl said, what do you want to do? And I said, honestly, I don't even want to be here anymore. I don't want to be in school anymore. I own a business. I do whatever. So he guided me through the process, got me on the work program. I went to school 3 hours a day to get my minimums done, and I went to work. So and that's what I did.
So what was your business back then?
Lawn and landscaping.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I had probably like somewhere around 35 yards to mow every week. So, I don't know what the math is there, but I was making, I don't know, $1,200 a week just off of mowing. And then I was doing fertilizing and I was doing landscaping projects, for thousands of dollars. And I would hire people. And as soon as they got off of work or off of school, they get out at 3:00, they come work for me until dark. So I was hiring people in high school and to help me complete these projects. And I did really well at it. And then I was able to sell that business, and I sold it to another lawn care company. So by the time I was 18, a little over 18 and a half, I guess, I was able to sell that business. And that was my first taste of that. Like, wait a minute, I built this. Now I'm going to be able to sell it. And I got 2 years earnings out of it is what I got for that. And I was young, and it was good enough for me. I mean, it wasn't a grand slam, but it was just good enough for me. 18 years old, and I walked with 2 years of earnings. I just got paid 2 years severance pay for everything that I built. It made sense to me.
So,
and then I went, yeah, go ahead.
So with that, there's some things that when it comes to buying and selling businesses, I know there was an education that came into play from that. So what was that process?
Well, I knew a guy that owned a lawn care company, and I simply just went to him and I said, hey, I got to go to school, but I got this business. And would it be worth anything to you? And he was real good to me. And he said, yeah, it would be worth something to me. He said, bring me everything you got. So I did. And I brought him basically, and it was on scratch paper. It was like on notebook paper, like I was in high school. I was so, it's not like I could put a spreadsheet together or anything back then. I just wrote out all my clients, the kind of work that I had done, the money I had brought in. And he said, why don't I pay you 2 times what you did every year? And I was like, well, hell yeah. Why wouldn't I want to? Let's do it. And he paid me 1 year up front, and then he paid me the other year as it came. And it worked out for me just fine. And so I learned that, but typically what you'd want to do if you owned a business, you'd want to go to a broker, because the chances of that happening, somebody that would really take care of you and honor their word and all that, is pretty slim.
So how can, you lay so many questions inside my head as we progress forward. Let's jump ahead in time. Now you found your calling. How did you land into the official broker business?
Well, I went and flew planes is what I did. I had X amount of dollars. I went to school. I studied aviation, actually aeronautical science. I went to college for that. And then I went down to Airline Training Academy, and I was flying planes down at Orlando Executive Airport. And it was Airline Training Academy. I also went to Calm Air. Well, I became a commercial pilot before 9/11. And I told myself that if I'm ever going to not be self-employed, the only thing I'll do is fly planes. And the reason is because nobody's managing you. You know what you need to go do. There's a plane there. You need to fly it to somewhere else. And it was going to allow me to travel the world, have freedom, and enjoy my life. And 9/11 stopped that. I was flying a plane coming in over the Gulf of Florida. I was headed towards Orlando International, and that's where George W. Bush was parked, and he was at that school, that elementary school, when 9/11 was happening. And they diverted me to Orlando Executive, and about 3-4 weeks later, my career was over.
Why is that?
Well, because it sent a shockwave through the airline industry. Nobody was flying. Airlines went out of business. Pilots got furloughed, and it was at least a 2-year waiting period to even think about getting hired again. That was just already given to anybody. Because what happened was those terrorists that flew those planes into the buildings and the Pentagon, they only had X amount of hours. Okay, they only had 600 or 700 hours of flight time. So they immediately changed the rules where you had to have a minimum of 1,500. That was one of the first things they did. So any pilot that had gotten in through one of these high-pressured schools and didn't go to the military, I went to one of these high-pressured schools. You went to school 7 days a week. You flew. You went to ground school every day, and they taught you like the airlines want you to be taught.
Yeah,
it's not like you. It was very military, and so that's how they taught you. So that's how you got in for lower hours. So basically, if you got into the airlines young enough and with less time, then you lost your window immediately.
Yeah.
But even if you did have more flight time, it was still going to be 2 years, if not 3 years, until it rebounded. Now there's a pilot shortage, but that's a different story. But specific to this topic, I lost my job in 9/11. I was down in Florida. I was homeless because I had spent everything on my career.
Right.
And I just lost it all. So I packed up 2 boxes of everything that I could stuff in these damn boxes. I got them on the airplane. I got back to my hometown, and I had a baby on the way, and I didn't know it.
Ooh-wee.
Had a baby on the way, didn't know it, found that out, And I asked myself, what am I going to do? I started asking friends of mine, what do I do? What do I do? They said, well, get into selling mortgages. And I said, what's a mortgage? They said, it's a lien on a house, banks. And I was like, oh, okay, great. All right, well, show me how to do it. So my friend showed me how to do it. I spent about 2 weeks with him. I started with him, and I started just crushing it. I started beating everybody in there because of my work ethic and my intensity. I said, what do I really do to be successful with this? And I said, no, not all that stuff. Tell me what I really do to be successful. He said, make that phone hurt. Make so many phone calls that you think that phone is hurting. I said, okay, I'll do it. And so that's all I did. Well, I had so much stacked up on my desk. It looked like something out of a movie. I had files stacked up left and right. Now I had too much business to handle, and nobody in the mortgage company could even help me handle it. I got really frustrated. I did make about my second month there. I made like $35,000 that month.
Wow.
I decided to go open up my own mortgage company, and that's exactly what I did. I built that mortgage company to 120 employees. I was bringing in $7 to $10 million a year. And then 2008 happened, the crash of 2008.
Yeah, I was about to say, I could picture the time frame as you were saying it. Yeah.
So I was in aviation during 2001, and 9/11 happened. I got crushed. and then I'm in the subprime mortgage industry all the way to 2008. I was bringing in $7 to $10 million a year in revenue.
That was a cash time in real estate.
It was cash time and mortgage, real estate, and everything. It was a boom, and then it went straight bust. And I mean quick. It was like the water valve just got turned off. And so I had 5 leases. I had 120 employees. My monthly overhead was probably $120,000, $130,000 before any other expenses occurred. That was my monthly, just with my leases and my basic costs. I had just signed 5-year leases in 2007. I had just renewed 5 years of leases. So we went bust, lost my employees, mortgage business went out of business, market changed, and I had all that debt. I did not file bankruptcy, but anybody would have. I didn't file bankruptcy. I just fought through it, but I lost everything. I should have sold that business when I was doing well. When you're doing well is the time to sell. But when I was approached in 2006 to sell my business, I was like, why would I sell this thing? Look how much money I'm making. and I could literally kick myself in my own ass right now because and I often do. I still do, because that would have been probably an $8 or $10 million payday from what I had built. And I sat there and said, why would I do that? Why would I sell this thing? And man, those words are still echoing as to why I would sell it. So now I'm flat bust and broke again. So I decided, because my girlfriend was nagging at me to stain the deck. This is no kidding. I mean, this is exactly how it worked. I just went broke. I mean, from bringing $7 to $10 million a year to being completely busted. 2008 economic collapse that made it was a Great Depression. It wasn't a recession. Okay, it was a depression.
Oh, I remember.
We're just too politically correct to say it was a depression. So I'm with my gal, and she's just nagging at me like hell to go stain the deck, and I don't know how to stain a deck. But I didn't know how to fly a plane at one time. I didn't know how to write a mortgage at one time. You learn, right? So I went to the hardware store and I stained this deck, and it looked like hell. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, anybody could have done a better job than what I did, is what I figured. Then I got to thinking about it, and I'm like, you go to the hardware store, you ask how to do this, and they don't really tell you the right way to do it. Then I started looking around at all these decks and fences that just look like eyesores. I started a company because I learned how to do it right. And so I started a company called Got Wood. Question mark. Got wood. Question mark. So I started that business, and I was making, right off the gate, I was making $150,000 a year. I built that business, sold it in a couple years. I sold it for whatever, I forget now actually, but I sold it around $300,000, for maybe $325,000. And then right around 2010, 2011, we had a drought. It was a major drought. The earth was splitting. I mean, foundations were breaking. Concrete was falling. It was a huge drought. And all this concrete was falling around me. So I opened up a mud jacking business. I opened up that business. I built it. I started it with nothing. I built that company up to making, I don't know, $180,000, $200,000 a year. And I sold it for quite a bit of money. And it's the biggest mud jacking company in my hometown still today. My point is that during the 2008 crash and the Obama era, which was a horrible economic time, I built and sold 2 companies. And I made a lot of money during those times, even though everybody else was just trying to figure out how to survive. But I had also made a terrible mistake by not selling my business back in 2006 when it was viable. It was healthy. It was vibrant. It was alive, man, you know, and when you're doing well is the time to sell. And so, I that's how I got where I'm at. I was building businesses and selling them. And then to wrap this up, a friend of mine said, "You're so good at selling these companies of yours. Why don't you help other people do it?" So I started doing that. Started helping other people. And I was doing it for free, basically, because it was more like, yeah, I'll help you. Okay, I'll help you.
You weren't taking a commission?
Well, right. It's just kind of like I was helping people get through the process. And then I'm like, you know what? I could do this full time. And a light bulb went on. It was an inflection point for me. I said, let's just do this full time. And so I quit building and selling my own businesses, and I've built and sold several companies of my own, six of them to be exact. And I just quit doing it, and I started doing it for other people exclusively. Now I'm doing deals all over the world, and, you know, some of them are, you know, up to $100 million. And it's just been a fascinating journey. And I wrote the book, Swinging Doors, A Guide to Selling Your Business. I wrote that book, and it sells around the world. And I've just had a great time at it. And I made lemonades out of lemon. That's what I did.
Hey, Chad.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand this. Actually, I'm just getting into understanding buying and selling businesses myself. But I'm coming from a different perspective than most people. In this day and age, where can someone start? If someone says, you know, I got the hustle, I'm willing to work. I'm working for this person X every day anyway, and I'm doing a great job, and I'm there on time, and I'm staying over, and I got $7,000, and I just want to get me a piece. Can they do that?
Absolutely. I can. You know, I wrote a book, From Blue to White, A Working Man's Guide to Self-Employment. Now, even if you're not a working man, even if you're not a blue-collar guy, and the reason I wrote that is because I've always been a white-collar guy, but I went to blue-collar. But I wrote that book back in, I don't know, 2000 and, I don't even remember now, 2010, 2011. It's From Blue to White, A Working Man's Guide to Self-Employment. And I was really honored to have Scott Alexander of Rhinoceros Success put a beautiful foreword in that book for me. And, you know, he's a best-selling author. Rhinoceros Success is one of the biggest motivational books out there. But mine really was a how-to book. But I showed people in that book how to take $1,000 and go out there and with the possibility of making $1,000 a day. And that's what I did with my businesses. And so I wrote that book. But even if you're not blue collar, the principles are still the same. Here's your answer for you. Yes, you can do it. It's what you have to understand is, what position do you want to be in whatever transaction is occurring within the industry that you are in. I don't care if it's software, if it's labor, or if it's a trade. You know, the person that is making the most money is more than likely the salesperson,
yep,
or the owner. Most of the time, I would say most of the time, but a lot of the time, salesmen are making more than the owners. So, you know, there's no money in management, and there's no money in actually doing the work. And there can be a hell of a lot of money if you're the owner and you figure out how to make your mousetrap, and it's a beautiful, efficient mousetrap. But most of the money comes to getting contracts. That's where you make the most money. So if you're the one, you're the salesman, or you're the person that can make the contract happen, you're going to be getting the most money. So let's just say you have $7,000 and you're in X amount of, you're in whatever field. Figure out where's the money being made. Let's just say you're in software development. Well, somewhere, somebody is selling that software at a very big price tag. And then the employer is hiring you to do the work, to do that programming. Well, he's making a big margin on that. So since you know software or technology or whatever it is, since you know it, you can speak it. Get out there and put on a different hat. Put the salesman hat on or put the owner hat on. Go do it yourself. And that's a switch that you have to have in your mind to say, yeah, I can do this plumbing, or I can do this software engineering, or I can do this IT work, or I can do this whatever. But if I were to find a way to be the person selling it or making the company, I could be in a better paying position and I wouldn't have to do the work anymore. I could hire somebody else to do it. All you got to do is figure out how to put a different hat on.
Now, the reason I use a $7,000 figure, because for one, we're in a very delusional freaking society right now. I mean, if you go on Instagram, if you go on Facebook, if you go on YouTube, somebody's like, I can get you 6 figures. I can get you. And they're selling you. The reason they've made 6 figures is because they can sell you on what they can tell you. And I know that the world is different than that. Other than that, I know more people have access to $7,000 than they do $10,000 or $100,000. So
well, let me ask you. Let me clarify though. Are you saying that there's a bunch of people out there selling the concept of being successful only for you to subscribe to what they want to tell you, and they're not going to be fully transparent with you? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is true. But
okay. So let me add to that. I agree with you. You're 200% correct. In addition to that, there's too many people out there that have their own ideas. Anymore, you have to pick who you want to emulate. And that we are in the world, let's just face it, college educations are a waste of money and time unless it is specified for a certain job that you really are passionate about doing. If you want to be a dentist, if you want to be a doctor, right, if you want to be a scientist, whatever, yes, you got to do it, okay?
I believe you.
But for the majority of people, it's a waste of money. So now what we're doing on the internet is we're learning from others. We're mimicking others. That is how people are getting their education. Well, if you wanted to learn how to be massively successful, you could listen to a book by Donald Trump. If you wanted to be massively successful, you could also listen to a book or read a book from Dave Ramsey. Well, you can't listen to both. You got to go one or the other. Donald Trump is a master with debt. He understands how to be wealthy off of being heavily in debt. Dave Ramsey, his whole thing is don't be in debt. Then you can work on your wealth. So what you have now is you have so much information coming at you on the web, and so many people saying that they have the answers for you. But do they really? And then you have to choose who you're going to mimic and emulate, who you are going to learn from on the web. And then once you decide that, you have to lock in and you have to do everything that they tell you, and you got to dig for answers because, like you said, they're not going to be able to tell you everything.
Yep.
And you have to go in there and you have to dig, and you have to go to people that are in that industry and say, hey, explain this to me. Am I missing something there? Because there's going to be little pebbles, little nuggets of information that they're not giving you, but they're still charging you. A guy who's really good at this is Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone,
I've heard,
is so good at fooling. Now, I like the guy. He's a hustler. He's a grinder. I love the guy. But he is so good at getting you to subscribe to all his bullshit, but he's not going to give you what you really need to go do it. You know why? Because while he's training you to do what he does, he's also asking you for money, because he's going to give you only what he wants you to do. And then he's going to say, hey, you could be a part of this. If you were to invest $50,000 from me, I'll give you a 6% return, and you'll be able to learn from me.
That's a Ponzi scheme.
Well, it's actually not. It's not. It's not. He asks for money and for you to invest into real estate. It's not a Ponzi scheme at all. He's given a return. You know exactly what's happening. You invest your money, and you do get a 6% return. You also get a kicker whenever he sells that property. He's not doing anything that's illegal. But what I'm saying is that he knows how to turn real estate. So now he's got millions of people that want to invest in Cardone Capital. That was his end goal. His end goal was not to really teach you how to do what he does. So what I'm saying is there's always an element of trickery around subject matter experts online trying to teach you how to take your $7,000 and turn it into $1 million. See, I've got no dog in the fight. I don't want to teach your audience how to become a millionaire. That's not what I do. All I do is I help people buy businesses and I help people sell businesses.
No, the reason
I don't have
the reason I was asking is because, we always think in the traditional way. So when we think of a traditional business, we think of brick and mortar most of the time. Like, I'm going to buy this insurance agency, or I'm going to buy this hair salon, or I'm going to buy this widget X producer. But in this day and age, also, you can buy a website that makes, like $5,000 a month. You can buy an app that is a business that pulls in revenue, or several. You can buy a bunch of them that make, $200 a month. But what I'm getting at is most people don't understand that you can literally go out just like you go to Amazon. You can buy a business, but there's ways to do it, and that's where you come in. So what are some of the things that people need to understand about buying a business? I mean, like you implicated, not implicated, but you kind of led to it earlier where you said, if you got 10%, I can get you in.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that buyers need to understand is that just because you want to buy a business doesn't mean you're unique. Okay? What's unique is business sellers. Right now, I've got 3,000 people or more that want to buy a business. And if I were to throw a good business inside those 3,000 people, it'd be like throwing a pork chop into 5 wolves.
I bet.
It would last no time at all, and there'd be a fight on the hands. So when you're a buyer, so let's just say you had $200,000 or $300,000 saved up. Don't think you're special. Now that's one of those little nuggets that people aren't going to tell you. You're not special at all. I got 3,000 or more people that have tons of money. What will make you unique and special is if you know how to work with a good broker and be a good buyer, and work with a good broker that will only give you a good deal, a good business, because I only sell businesses that are good businesses. I get approached every week with businesses that aren't good. Either their books aren't clean, or I don't trust the seller, or the seller's got personality problems. The employees are disgruntled. After the sale, the business might not hold together. All sorts of things. I don't bring on every business, but as a good broker, you can trust that from me. So one of the first things about being a buyer is don't think you're special. Number 2, you got to have some money saved up. It's nice to say, well, I'd like to go buy a business, but I don't have any money. Well, that's nice, but it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. You have to pay your dues if you want to go buy a business, or bootstrap a business together, like I said earlier. Do something that's within your current space, within your current environment of what you do for a living. I don't care if it's roofing, plumbing, software, data management, whatever it is. Figure out how to make more money within that industry by changing your hat. Just change your hat. If not, then get into something else where you can make better money and save up enough money to where you can go buy an existing business. Because an existing business there's an insurance policy in that. You buy a business that's been open for 5, 6, 7 years, it's established. Now all you got to do is go to the bank, borrow the money, and keep it going, and you get to do with it what you want to do with it. That's what I would tell you about buying a business.
So, what about right now? We're going through some weird stuff right now. So,
oh yeah.
I mean, economically, because I had a guest on yesterday who is an accountant, and I was asking, with this stimulus that is happening, everybody's getting $600. They don't even want to go back to work. Most people are making more than double of what they were bringing home prior to COVID-19 with the stimulus. But additionally, that is devaluing the dollar and weakening the dollar overall, especially if it continues. On top of that, there are many businesses that are going under that were thriving businesses before. How does that affect the climate now with what you do?
Well, every business that's for sale out there right now is at least 10% down on value. Okay? So if you got a $2 million business, it's worth 1.8 now. There's been at least a 10% decline. A lot of restaurants will never come back. They've just gotten flattened.
Yeah.
If you're a specialty restaurant, let's just say you're a high-end barbecue restaurant, real good food, and you got your drive-through game, on point. Well, you probably made it through it. But a lot of these restaurants just couldn't make it. So, getting in the restaurant business even before COVID was a gamble. Now it's, now you got to be really selective. But there's a lot of businesses that have thrived during this. There's a lot of businesses. I mean, there's a lot of money being made right now out there. And, right now there's a lot of money in personal protective equipment. You got masks and gloves and all that kind of thing. There's literally billions of dollars being made right now off of rubber gloves.
I believe it.
So, yeah. So, just because there's a downtime doesn't mean that everything's down.
Yep.
COVID has improved my way of life.
Say it again.
COVID has improved my way of life. Totally.
It slowed your roll, didn't it?
No, it improved my way of life.
I understand. I understand when I said improve, but
it improved it because everybody wants to meet me. I get to say, no, I can't meet you. It's COVID now. So, I'd put on my suit and tie and I'd go have at least 5 meetings a week that resulted in nothing. So now I say, hey, let's hop on the phone. It's improved my life. People are forced forced to use technology now. So we had all this technology before, but we were still doing face-to-face meetings because people like to meet and they like to have wasteful meetings. And I don't know if I brought COVID here by all these prayers that I made, but I said, God, help me. I don't want to do these meetings anymore. Just do something to get rid of these wasteful meetings for me. And my prayers have been answered. I get to hop on a Zoom call or a phone call, and I'm not shaking hands like I was and doing the day-to-day grind like I was. So, it's all in how you look at it. You can buy a business today that's thriving. You also have to watch out for what type of business it is because, it could die on the vine with COVID too, so business is not bad. It's just changing. Yeah.
So if somebody wants some more information, because, a lot of people are dealing with their savings or they just need some education. They need to understand how to move about this, because I'm going to be honest. Many people are ignorant. They don't know these ways. Many people chose this. I'm going to go to college. That's going to be great for me for the rest of my life. But they don't understand several things. And this is the United States population. They don't understand how the money system works. They don't understand that we're on a fiat system. They don't understand banking. They don't understand how banking controls things. They just see, we're at 0%. I just do this. they don't understand, like, hey, let me go get a net 45 to keep my business afloat. Any of the profits I keep, the rest I ship back and pay off this loan and get another one. People don't understand that. Are you educating people on these ways to do business, or do you have any venues like Facebook?
I'll tell you what, you just struck a nerve in me. I mean, it pisses me off. I mean, straight up, that our system does not teach people. Yes, I am educating people, but first I have to slap them around a little bit and let them realize that they don't know what they're talking about. Nobody's ever taught them. Most people don't know how finance works, how bank works, how interest works, how underwriting works, how the SBA works, how government loans work, how to leverage your debt, how to pay things off the right way, how to manage your money. I mean, people just don't know these things. They don't know how to buy a business. They don't know contract law. They don't know nothing. And so when they come to me, they are uneducated or ignorant. And then they start relying on their accountant or their lawyer. And I'm like, look, just because you don't know what you're doing, I don't want you to spend $300 an hour with a lawyer who wants to charge you clock time. That's what people do. People that don't know what they're doing rely on their lawyers at $300 an hour. And it's because the public education system and college, let's face it, even college doesn't prepare you for life.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I learned about money because someone gave me a check and I said that I was somebody. I said that I was a company. And I took a check and said, I'm this company. And they said, no, you're not. Prove it.
Right.
I was like, how do I prove it? And the lady told me how. Look, go down here and register, get your DBA. And my education started literally from that like 30 years ago. And it just progresses. Every time you take a step, life will kind of pull you along. So where would people find this education? Because, and the reason I'm saying it is because you can help them out the rip, but it's going to take a little movement. Or they can do their due diligence and understand that they're ignorant. And ladies and gentlemen, when I say someone's ignorant, I don't mean that in a bad term. I just mean they simply don't know, because I am ignorant about many things and was woefully ignorant earlier in my life about much more. But sometimes you need an education before you take an ambitious step. So where's the education for them to have before they get to you? What's some of the things they need to know? Well,
one thing is you got to have enough money saved up if you want to buy a business. You can't come to me with 10 or 15 grand. You need to have at least $100,000 to come play ball with me. At least 100 grand. But, if you want to check out Peterson Acquisitions, go to petersonacquisitions.com. And also, if they let me know that they heard me on your show, I will give them a free download of Swinging Doors, a guide to selling your business. So I will, they just get the book on petersonacquisitions.com, and I will send them a copy of the book for free, just for being on your show.
Got it. So that might give somebody a heads up. I would recommend that everybody kind of invest in Robert Kiyosaki too, because he's been dropping some science lately.
Yeah. Kiyosaki's gone from just showing you how to do a real estate deal to talking about the psychology of why some people are successful and others are not. And, some people have it, some people don't. Maybe you're born with it, maybe you're not. A lot of it is conditioning. A lot of it is it's all psychological, but a lot of it's psychological conditioning. If you're used to making 50 grand a year, you're in that vibration. That's who you are. But if you took a guy who made, 200 million a year, you thumped him on the head and he spent 6 weeks in a coma, he'll come out of that coma and he'll get right back to making $200 million a year. It's not because he's smarter, he's better or nothing. That's what he's used to. That's his vibration. That's his walk. That's his blueprint. And you got to change your blueprint if you want to be successful. And that comes with changing your hat and looking at things from a different perspective. And Kiyosaki has shown people that you can look at something with a different perspective, and that's why he came out with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You can look at something from a different perspective, and it'll change everything in your life.
The next 24 months are going to be different than any 24 months we've ever experienced. We have a lot of changes coming up in a very short amount of time as we are going through changes. But where do you see yourself in the next 18 to 24 months? What's on your horizon?
Well, on my horizon is nothing but goodness. My life is going to be better and better, regardless of what everybody else says out there in the market. You've got to have that mentality, because there's something to. And you mentioned about 10 or 15 minutes ago, you said for every step you make in life just kind of pulls you through. Well, it does. Why do poor people remain poor? Why do rich people remain rich? It's a mentality. Now, I know that the next 24 months of my life is going to be fantastic. And because I know that, it will be so. It's called manifesting. But where I see myself in 24 months is my business will be booming. It already is booming. COVID has me so busy because people want to sell their business and people want to buy a job. You got to remember, that's the other side of this.
Oh, that's a good one.
A lot of people have lost their job. Now they want to buy a job. Okay, so I can literally put you in a job. I can put you in a business that's making you 150 or 200 grand. If you lost your job in COVID, no problem. But you got to have the money. You got to have some money to come talk to me. And I can put you in another job. This just happens to be a job that you're the owner, not an employee. And there's a lot of that going on right now.
Yeah. Man, I could talk to you forever, but I know people's attention span is pretty short. So I try to keep it underneath an hour. What we'll do is, we'll check in with each other before Thanksgiving. How's that?
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. I'll be on here again. If your audience likes me, they like hearing what I'm saying, then I'll be on here again for you.
You forgot it's my show.
That's what I'm saying. I'll be on with you if your audience likes it. I'll be on again, no doubt.
You're kicking some real science to people. I mean, and this knowledge, this is the knowledge that people don't get. This is knowledge that Americans just don't get. And we didn't even scratch the surface of it because we have these predetermined, kind of setup. But usually when I get in with people, we just start talking like we're sitting down having a drink together and we're peers.
Sure.
Because that's the best way for people to really learn, because that's what being a billionaire is about. It's about each one teach one. And people always ask me, does your show make money? Does it do this? Does it do that? And I say, no, this is me giving back to the world, because so many people have a voice, but they don't have a place to put it. And I give them a place to put their voice so that they can inspire one of these trillions of people that are on this planet. So, and you're one.
I love it.
And you're one of those people who have a knowledge and a forcefulness, because, and I hate to say this, and I may get in trouble with some of the people, but there's a certain masculinity and a forcefulness that is needed, because that's what drives things.
It does.
I hate to say it.
It does, absolutely. Drive, intensity, vigor, manifesting, calling your shot. Greatest baseball player in history, Babe Ruth, he called his shots. He wasn't playing the game just hoping that things went well. He called it. And that is that masculinity that it takes to make things happen.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for being on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast.
I want to thank you for having me. It's been a blast, man. I enjoy talking to you as well.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how we end. Remember, you are a billionaire. Remember, just look at your hand from the tip of your finger to where your hand meets your wrist. That is your hand. You know this. Flip it back and forth, wiggle the fingers. Now, if you look at that, it looks solid, but it's not. It's made of these things called cells, and the cell dictates the self. You don't get hungry. Your cells get hungry, and they tell you what to do. In you is constitution of trillions of cells, so you're at least a billionaire. And I'm going to break it down even further, as I do every show. Your mother and your father shared some information. Your father gave it to your mom. She took it and she made something with it, because she gets power from the cosmos, from the universe. 2 cells began to dance. They became 4. They became 8. They became 16. 30 days later, you were over 1 billion cells and you hadn't hit the planet yet. So quit tripping on this stuff that is so new that we're still trying to figure out how to manifest and manage it, which is money and cars and things like that. Your base thing is to love yourself. And when you love yourself, you can't help but love the other entities that look and feel, hear what I said, feel like you. And I don't mean by touch, but I mean they feel like you. You will know them when you see them. You can't help it. When you see them, treat them with love, honor, and respect. Till next time, love you all. Peace.